Hey, everybody. I'm Joe. This is not the Deep End Podcast. This is the first episode of something that we are for now calling Shenanigans and McGuffins. Literally, this is a completely free forum, open space that we've invited to dozens of people in the board gaming community that are really into 18xx and other train games, and just a time for us that we're just going to take a bit of time and we're just going to talk about train games. There's no set schedule for this. There's no set time for this. There's no agenda. There's no notes. These guys don't have any notes that I sent them. There's nothing. I just wanted to put this live hangout on air. People will maybe pop in the middle, come out at the end. It doesn't matter. It might start with some people and end with some people that are completely different. Who knows? But we're just going to have fun. This is not going to be edited for anything special. This is just going to be produced as audio for you guys to occupy time. But it's live. You guys can ask questions in the chat. We'll be following along with that. If anybody is out there and does want to ask us questions and be a part of the discussion, we'll feel free to stop and just look at that and talk to you guys that are live with us. But we're just going to talk about train games, guys. You guys like train games, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So if people are not familiar, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and kind of how people would know about you as far as what the media aspect is? Kyle, why don't you go first?
I guess I'm Kyle Nauman. I'm the producer and
you are a little low again, just so you know. Whatever happened, we've been messing with Kyle's sound the entire time.
Main guy behind the Dual Gauge podcast, and we've been doing that for about 8 months now. It's a monthly podcast that's solely 18xx based.
And if they would do more episodes, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm just kidding. It is, though, every time a Dual Gauge podcast comes in, I'm just like, oh boy! I'll wake up in the morning, and one of the first things I do is while I'm taking not while I'm taking a shower, but while I'm in the bathroom, I'll refresh my podcasts. So I'll just be sitting there, I'll refresh my podcast, and as soon as a Dual Gauge one comes up, I'm like, oh boy! And I listen to it, and then I finish it. It's an hour, and I'm like, it's over. I guess I'll get that euphoric feeling the next time. So, and Andy, go ahead. A lot of people would probably know you from the Deep End anyway, but go ahead and tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name's Andrew Dennison. I'm part of a board game group in Central Iowa and podcast The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Kind of my role on that podcast is to do the heavy game, sort of heavy game. It's more like heavy game, weird game / unpublished game / anything that will not normally be reviewed by almost any other podcast reviewer except the odd people in my little niche of the world. But I do a lot of train games because those are definitely one of my favorite styles to play. Splotter, Hollenspiel games, other things like that.
Yeah, it's I mean, these are people that I know because we talk about train games on Twitter basically nonstop. And so this is kind of the way I know these guys. We produce content in the same vein, I guess. I mean, we're all pretty much subsidies at some point of heavy cardboard. So we're we get their trickle down listeners. But we all kind of have a different focus. Heavy games is kind of the thing that binds us. But the three of us primarily are all heavy gamers, and we are 18xx gamers primarily. And I mean, I guess we can just start talking about that a little bit. So I played my first 18xx game, believe it or not, last year at Origins. So last June, I played my very first game of 1846, and instantly I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And so I guess I'll go a little bit back and kind of give you a little bit of my gamer history, and then you guys can give yours, kind of your venture into 18xx, I guess. But I started playing games in Alabama when I was working at a school, and I just needed a hobby. So I met up with this group. There was literally only 3 of us that played board games, and they played primarily lighter gateway stuff, a lot of Pandemic, a lot of just very easy to play stuff, a lot of deck building. We played a ton of Dominion, and I really like games. And I started buying games. I started watching the Dice Tower, started watching Tabletop, started buying games. And one of the games I ended up buying, because I think Shut Up and Sit Down said it was really good, was Village. And that was like the first true Euro game I ever played. Then I bought Dungeon Pets, which was a bit more complicated. And these were the games, like, every game night, I'd be like, please, let's play one of these. And they'd be like, I don't know. And then I got like Archipelago, and it was like a lot heavier than those. And I was like, come on, let's play this. And they were just like, maybe, you know? And so that was just the kind of group I was in. And I didn't know I was a Euro gamer or a heavy gamer, but I knew that where my tastes were headed. So somewhere in that time frame, I moved to Cleveland, which was like a mecca for board gaming. I mean, if you want to play board games in Cleveland, if you're willing to drive like 20 minutes, you can play games every day of the week. There is some meetup going on somewhere. It's gaming nonstop up here. And I met up with, a couple of meetups. And one of the places I went, I made friends with a guy, and he introduced me to Terra Mystica. And that was the first game I remember after getting done playing going like, this is what I want to play. This is the game, the kind of game I want to play. And after that, like, I just wanted to get heavier and heavier. I started finding out about Splotter, and I started like, oh, let's do this. And I played Roads and Boats and like all of these other kinds of games. And I was just like, as much as I could, I started trying coin games, all of these, like, like if you could make it complicated, heavy Euro, I was all about it. And I kept hearing about 18XX, kept hearing about them. And finally, like, I didn't know anyone that had one. I didn't know anyone that knew how to get one, because it's so niche, right? I didn't know anyone that could teach one. I bought 1830 on the Geek Market because I couldn't find a copy of it anywhere. So I bought a used copy on the Geek Market, and I spent like 5 months trying to read those rules, and I couldn't get it. I just didn't know. Like, based on the rule book, having never played anything like that, I couldn't play the game. And so I found Jimmy Okalika, who you guys probably have heard of. Jimmy lives in Southern Ohio, and he was going to be at Origins. And I sent him a message and said, hey, I was on a geek list for like meeting up, planning games at Origins. And I said, hey, I have some friends that want to play 18XX. We don't know how. I've read the rules a bunch, but I have no idea what to do. We're complete noobs. Can you teach us an 18XX game? And he's like, sure. And he taught us 1846. And the other guys that were there that day wanted to play one because they're like, oh, I've never played one. I'll do it. It took about 6 hours. One player ended up in a death spiral, which in 1846 is very difficult to do. But I remember getting done with this game, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, this is my kind of game. And I went home, and I was like, I played 1830 2-player with my wife the next week. I was like, you're sitting down, you're playing this with me, because I had to get more out of my system. And I just started playing 18XX nonstop. And I'm lucky I found a really good group. We have like 5 or 6 good players here in Northeast Ohio in the Canton, Akron area now. We're constantly getting people that are like, hey, I live in Akron. I heard about the Deep End. Can I come play 18X with you? I've had like 3 or 4 people that have done that, and it's awesome. I play online every day with Andy, and so we play literally like always have a couple of concurrent games going online, which is a great forum to play 18XX. But that's how I got into it, and it's been an addiction. It's been a huge thing for me. But that's kind of how I got into it. How did you guys get into it? I'm just curious what your stories are. Andy, you wanna hit it?
Yeah, I could go. My path to kind of board gaming and heavy gaming starts out fairly normal enough, but then takes a weird spiral. And I totally don't recommend that most people do what I've done, because I started off sort of watching Tabletop and wanting to play different games that you would normally have on the table. So I had some Catan and some Ticket to Ride. They're pretty cute. But I quickly found that I wasn't getting as much gaming in as I would like, just with the kids and all that. So I'm like, I wonder if they make like solo board games. Let me check that out. So I did some looking, find like a top list of solo board games. And then, like right up there was Mage Knight. I'm like, all right, I'll buy this thing. And so it came in, and then I looked at it. I'm like, oh dear Lord, what have I done to myself? But I also am very, very stubborn. So I beat my head against that rule book until essentially it gave up and I learned the system. And there were several occasions where I look at my wife after playing it and go, I know I just played a really good game. And she's like, why is that? I'm like, because I'm taking Advil. And that love of heavy games kept pushing me forward. Now, I think the thing that kept me out of train games for a while was some of the time commitments it would require, but also that stereotype that so many Euro gamers and stuff have of the train gamers. I think there's, it's all old crusty people that won't be nice to you and, and whatnot. And then I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but I just kind of avoided it for a while. And then I heard a couple Longview podcasts and the people on there, I'm like, well, these guys seem friendly enough. And then Heavy Cardboard started talking about it. And then basically I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm down for trying these when I get a chance. And then as it, those who listen to my podcast will know, my friend and co-host Joe Salin, that was when he was in his crazy buy phase that you get into as a gamer. So he was buying like everything. And there's often a pattern that will happen in our group. Joe will buy a game that he's heard is really neat or something, play it, hate it, and then go, I know Andy will want this game. So he had gotten like a ding and deck copy of 18OE. And he basically looked at the amount of work it was going to take to sticker that game and just get it playable. And
that's a miserable game to sticker too, because those plugs are so bad.
I know it's hard, but basically what he did is looked at that and then called me and he's like, yeah, I know you'll actually do this because you're that insane. And I'm like, yeah. And so I got it, stickered it all. And I'm like, okay, I definitely want to play this. Let's do this. And he's like, do you just want to buy it from me? Because I don't want to ever have to teach this. And so we ended up doing that. Me and another guy who's sometimes on our podcast, Nate, played a learning game of it. And then basically we sat down with me, this other guy, and Joe Salin to play a game. And that's where we finally figured out what happens when you break Joe Salin's brain. Because we were playing the short scenario, which said 3 to 4 hours. So we planned on 3 to 4 hours. 8 hours later, at 2 a.m, Joe's like, I can't number anymore. I don't care if I win. And it was just pushing the poker chips away from him. And after that, I was fairly hooked. So I started grabbing different titles, trying to find shorter ones we could play in a time, like 1889, 1846. As I start getting more into deep nerdery, which I am likely to do in any situation, I just keep consuming, playing, trying, and until I don't know, I get bored, which is not happening anytime soon. I mean, like you said, Joe, we've had like at least 2 games going continuously since like September of last year or something.
I think it was around November, December. Yeah.
November, December. Okay. Yeah. So, and I haven't gotten bored of them yet. I went from maybe like 2 or 3 plays a year because I started probably 3 or 4 years ago to now we're up to like, God, I don't know, 40s, 50s I play now. I still feel like a noob half the time, but somehow I'm destroying some other people. So it works.
Yeah. I know that I get to play a lot more than you do. And so, like, I know in my 1 year of playing, like, I've calced up over 120 plays at my last count of 18xx games, which is insane. Kyle, go ahead. Tell us your story, man. Tell us your story.
My story? I guess I started about 10 years ago. We started playing 1835 first, and we played that for a few months, and then played 1830. And then everybody started moving away at that time, and so did I. I moved to Ames, in Little Ames, Iowa, and I joined up with the Des Moines group at that time, and played with them for a few years. They only played once a month, so I didn't get too many plays in during that time. But I, still played, and kept trying to get the group here in Ames to play something heavier. It never really happened until I left, I guess. And once I moved out here to Illinois.
Hey, Kyle, some people in the group are saying, I don't know what's up with your sound tonight, but it just keeps getting low. Crank it, man. Crank it. Give us that Led Zeppelin volume.
Wow. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Usually want to come in a little hot when you're doing it live like this, just because it usually just comes through a little bit clearer.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so I hooked up with this group in Northern Illinois, Randall, and I've been playing with them since. They've played many titles. They started back when 60 or 56 and 70 were brand new.
Oh my goodness, they're old.
Wow.
So they have a lot of experience. And lots of shenanigans go on with them.
Yeah, I got to actually go out and play with Kyle's group a couple of weekends ago, probably about a couple months at this point now. And it was a good time. And they are sharks, blood in the water players for sure. And I ended up winning 2 of the 3 games that I went out there to play. And I don't know if they were like treating me with kid gloves or whatever it was, but it was really fun because that was the first time I had ever gone to play with other experienced players that weren't my direct group and didn't get my teeth kicked in. So now,
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So I was actually having this discussion with a couple of people this week. Have you guys noticed that there's like a pretty steep learning curve to 18xx to where it's like, it's really weird. Like someone that's played 18xx once will beat someone that's never played 18xx, I would say like 99 times out of 100. Like just it's gonna happen. And then I would say someone that's played 18xx 10 times would beat the person that's played 1 time, like 99 times out of 100 almost, you know? And it kind of ramps up like that. But do you feel that there really is kind of like that break where it's like you kind of understand the system and you kind of get it? Like you speak the language, you can sit down at a game, even if it's one that you've never played before, and have a good idea of at least what to do. Do you guys feel like that learning curve ever kind of levels off?
I think so. Like for me, it's now I've gotten to the point where I have certain tried and true tested methods of dealing with a new game. So I've learned things like don't look at where companies necessarily start as their base position, although that can be a good way to do it. So I kind of start off by looking at the board, looking at what might be an initial good company, and then I immediately go to the tile mix and start looking for what cities will pay the most in the end game. And I start basing routes and strategies around that. And then what I'll do after that is that's when I say, okay, well, what unique mechanisms does this one have? And is that a weapon, a tool, or a hindrance? And like, can I exploit it? Or is it something I have to be careful of? So I don't know. I think at this point, like I can approach a new title I've never played before, and I'm comfortable enough in the general system that I don't think I can win by any means, but I can sit down and go, I think I can do this competently. Like I'm not going to spiral into death immediately.
Until you play 1817. But that's another story.
There's that. No, I figured that's going to happen there, but
oh man, I played 1817 4 times now, and I still like there's this mid-game fog in that where I'm just like, I don't have a effing clue what's gonna happen in this game. That game is bonkers crazy. What about you, Kai? Do you feel like that learning curve ever kind of evens out?
It does, but I think it takes a really long time. I mean,
yeah. So, like I said, Oh, go ahead.
Even the guys in my group that have played much more than me, I mean, I still have a hard time beating them. So.
Yeah. And that's I guess that's the rub is I think if you want to get into 18xx, like if you're not like already there, you got to be comfortable getting your teeth kicked in. Because one of the things I loved when I first started playing is going to like a convention and just getting my teeth knocked in by like Jimmy. We have a thing here called Ohio Heavy Con, and I would go down there, and I'd never played. That happened in November after he taught me my first game in June, and I just played like a couple of games with some local people, 30 and 46 some more. I think I played 89, and then I went down there, and he taught me 67. And I had never played a minors merging into majors, and I just got obliterated. And Andy, that's actually when I came back. We were like, we have to play 67.
I remember that one.
But like I just got my teeth kicked in, and I loved it because I just sat there watching what the other players were doing. Like, oh, okay, that's so cool. And it still can capture that because I still play like 18-17, and I will go down and play with the Columbus group, which those guys are really hardcore down there. And I'll go down there and play with them, and I'll just play 18-17 with them. And it's like on my turn, I'm like, okay, I do this. And then I'll just watch them play. And I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And this guy's like, oh, I'm going to start this 5-share company, and I'm going to liquidate it and get it, and I'm going to take its assets. And I'm just like, huh? That's awesome. I'm like, I don't even have a clue, man. And it's so good. Oh, I love the way that comes in. But so we're talking about learning curve. So I think I was talking to you about this, Andy, but with different groups, so this has not been the same group, but I think there's been 4 different groups in this mix, but I've won 7 of my last 7 18xx games, which is really weird. Like I'm on like a really crazy streak when it comes to like 18xx, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that like I'm playing better than everyone else or what the deal is, but going 7 for 7 in 18xx is pretty crazy, I would say. I don't know that other than Bruce Beard that happens. And I'm not saying I'm like as good as Bruce Beard, but I am saying I'm like, I wonder if it's just that learning curve has really evened out for me, and I can just look at the game and be like, I'm doing this, and then execute a strategy.
Yeah, I think so. Like for me, I'm often trying strategies, but the other thing with me, like also when I encounter games in heavy games, 18xx included, is growing up, and this is why one of the reasons I didn't play sports as a kid, other than having no upper body strength, but I'm inherently not a terribly competitive person, even though like in a game, I'm willing to, cut someone's tendon and drop them to get ahead of them. But I'm not naturally a super competitive person. And so what I often do when I approach a game is I approach it with like, what kind of off the wall, interesting strategy can I try this time? Okay, I'll just play with this and see what the heck happens. And I'm more interested to see how all the nuts and bolts work together than necessarily whether that plan will win me the game. Although obviously I am playing to do the best I can. But it's not until like maybe on a fifth or sixth play of a game where I really got a handle on it enough I can be super competitive about it. It's just, for me, it takes longer to sort of process all the nuances of a game and try things and explore. But even then, I mean, doing the online games, and I think also with 18xx, what really makes you the better player is playing with different groups. Because, for example, my group in Ames, as we formed it, we all primarily came from Euro games. So we tended to sort of Eurogame or 18xx and be like, no, we'll share the city. We don't have to both token it. And then online, it was like, bam, 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 knife to the ribs. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we could play this way too. All right, we'll do that. And now I feel like if I take those same techniques back to the Ames group, I'm going to make somebody cry by the end of it. Because I'll just sit there and go, nope, token. They're like, you're using a lot of tokens in this game. Yes, I am.
So Kyle, I have a question for you. And I don't know, maybe, but I played a couple of games with you. We played a full 3, I think we played 3 games back-to-back of 18xx. So one thing that my group has found, me, Tony, and Tim, they're the 3 main players in my group, and we have some other players. We are mean as hell. to each other. Like, we are super mean and aggressive when we play 18xx. Like, we will do whatever it takes to screw the other person over. Like, and it is blood, and like, it is crazy. We are out for blood when we play 18xx, and we're just used to it. And it's funny. Like, that's just the way we play, and it's the way we enjoy it, you know? And we found that we went to Origins this year. You know, a lot of us played some different 18xx games, and me and Tim have gone down to Columbus a few times. We found we play way more aggressively than other players. And I don't know if maybe Kyle, if you have a naturally more aggressive group or not, but I don't know if that's something you noticed either. Like, in the games that we played, was I, as far as just like how normally the people you play with, was like my play style way more aggressive?
It didn't seem like it, but
okay,
normal. But the
okay, because oh, go ahead.
The group in Des Moines, you're definitely more aggressive than they are. So
Okay.
when I moved out here,
Have you gone out there and played with those guys? Have you gone out there to play with the Iowa group?
Yeah, I used to live in Iowa, so.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there was a Des Moines group, which I think they still meet. I don't usually make it with them just because I don't have the time to like drive down Des Moines and then come back and everything. I know Joe did not have a pleasant experience because from what I've heard is the Des Moines group, like, they like to take their time and really calculate moves, and he was like banging his head against the table at like 8 hours and 18:30 because Joe just, not Joe here, but Joe Sallin, my co-host, like he just does not have the patience for that length of a game. Even then, when we play 18xx, even in Ames now, we tend to play pretty fast and loose. We would rather keep the game moving so that everyone's enjoying it, with the understanding that at some point there will be a critical point where you really do have to sit there and math it all out, and we will understand that there is one point for doing that. But please, for the love of God, do not be doing every move in phase 6 that way, or we will be here all night. And that's kind of how we play in Ames. But yeah, he didn't have a pleasant experience down in Des Moines because of the amount of AP, I think, for him there was. And he has issues sometimes. He's played an 89 or a 46 with us, and sometimes he's like, oh, it's moving slow, too much AP, and we're like, really? I feel like we're playing very fast for 18xx.
So it is funny how different groups play. So Tim actually played in the 18xx tournament in Origins.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play through the whole thing, so he just got in and played a couple of games. But he played 1880, which is a favorite of ours. Love 1880 down here. And so one of the things is in 1880, there's a couple of companies that when you start them, they start at a city, normally the ones in Beijing, and there's one city right outside of their tile. So they build their first tile, they have to build it, and it's a city. And he started playing with these people, and he's like, no one's tokening. And so Tim was like, just, new to the group, he's pretty, like, okay. And he's just playing his turns. And then he tokens this person, and they have no run. Like, they have 3 trains and they're running it like here, and that's it. And they're just like, what are you doing? And he's like, that's like standard, right? Like, why didn't someone do this before me? I had to build all the way from Shanghai up here in order to do it. You guys should have been doing it turns ago. And it was just funny to see how, like, taken aback these guys were. Like, you're not letting me do my own thing? And it was like, no, we're not. And that's just, it's funny to see different groups play like that. I know when I went to Chicago, they were aggressive with me. They were they played hard in Chicago. So if you ever get a chance to go out and play with Kyle's group, highly recommend it, because it's a good place to get your teeth kicked in if you are looking for that kind of an experience. So
yeah, I played with Kyle and some other people at HeavyCon, and I think I ended up winning. I think it was the first game of 18 Ireland. I still don't know how the hell that happened, but no, legitimately, I'm like, I gained and lost the same company like 3 times somehow, and in the end, they're like, "Oh, you have the most money." I'm like, "I do? How did that happen?" But or the other fun one for me too is I played 1822 later with Tony and I think Randall as well. And, me being me, I'm sitting here playing around and I started like 5 minor companies or something. And Tony Fryer was like, at the beginning, he's like, if you're new, I wouldn't start more than a couple minor companies just to keep yourself safe. And like halfway through the game, he looks over and he goes, and I see Andy decided to ignore my advice. And then I looked down and I was like, oh, crap. But that's where some of that experience and learning curve, like you talked about, came into play, because at that point I forgot about winning the game. And I'm just like, I'm going to survive this game. I'm not taking any loans. What can I do to make that happen? And it took every train juggling trick, every manipulation of turn order and folding and timing mechanism I've learned by playing online with people to make that happen. And I ended up coming in 6th. I'm, second, I think, in that one out of 4 or 5. And I'm just like, yeah, I would have been Lone City like a year ago in this situation.
So you mentioned a couple of games, which I guess we can start diving into some of the games that are kind of out there right now. And one of the games you mentioned, I told Kyle I was going to ask this question, but why the F do people like 18 Ireland? Because I don't get it. I need to play it more. But, man, I had a miserable time playing that game. It was just – it was a slog. Oh, my God, I hated it. So, you guys give me your thoughts on 18 Ireland. What do you think? Possibly more optimistic than my own, huh?
I'll let you go first, Kyle. No.
I personally really, really enjoy 18 Ireland. I like that it's very tight. I enjoy the merging with the voting, and you can take away people's companies when they don't want it taken away, or you can give them crappy companies when you want them to be gone. So it's very, very painful. And then the train rush at the end can be extremely fast. The last couple of games we played, the 6s didn't run. And when you're buying those out of pocket and then they don't run, and then you're buying more trains out of pocket, it's not good. It is a very fast spiral.
Yeah, I think for me, it's there's primarily 2 kinds of 18xx games I like to play, and I think really this extends to even Euro games and other things. The fastest way to get me interested in a game is either to say, holy crap, there's so many weird levers you can pull in this, that there's loads of things to do. So that's, for example, is like an 18OE or 1822, where there's all these mechanics in there and things you can play with. The other most quick way to get me to want to play a game is tell me this game is unbearably mean and it wants to destroy you. And then I'm like, okay, I'm interested now. I want to try that. Joe Salin, once again, my podcast co-host, has came up with a new term for me. He calls me a masochist, which I think is aptly accurate, really. But no, 18 Ireland I like because I like either an 18xx that has like everything but the kitchen sink thrown in, or I like an 18xx where you can really just knife your opponent in some god-awful way. And 18 Ireland plays into that sort of masochistic, sadistic streak of a board gamer I have. I like it when I'm building in that game. And one of the things I figured out very quickly, or I had, is, like Kyle or another gamer would be building routes, heading towards my company. And I'm like, oh God, what are they going to do to me? They're out to get me. They're out to get me. I don't want their direct near me. And then when I played it with another group, I immediately was sitting there parring companies low, because it's a meta sometimes in my group that they always want to par like a first company high. And so what they were doing was parring these companies high, and I was parring them low, and then just chasing their high value targets across the board and forcing them to merge with mine, and like just tanking the value of their company while raising the value of mine. And I didn't even care if I maintained presidency. I'm just like, I lost precedent. That's okay. I'll just sell all these shares next stock round. And just do things like that and be, just an utterly horrible person to them. It was the basic goal. But I don't know. Yeah, for some reason, that kind of just weird viciousness in a game appeals to me, which is weird because it totally wouldn't. Basically, as another friend of mine, Trent, likes to say, he turned me into a sadistic monster by making me play through the ages and then using nothing but aggression cards on me for a game. And ever since then, I'm just like, I have no feelings in a board game. I will destroy you. I'll smile and be happy and friendly while doing it, but I will do it.
Ireland just, man. Okay, so one of the things I find the one reason I'm just drawn to 18xx is the system and the rules are so open and loose. That's like one of the beautiful things about the games is it's like, here's some basic things that you have to follow. Other than that, manifest destiny. Like, that's the game, like, figure it out. You can, and it's so loose and open. And I feel like in Ireland, that's not the case. I feel like every step of that game is a slog with like chains around your ankles through like quicksand. Like, it is just okay, first of all, the yellow phase lasts for freaking ever and you can't do anything in it. Like, everything you build costs like so much terrain, and you've got the stupidest rule for dual gauge track. So, no offense, Kyle, but the dual gauge in that game is so dumb. Like, when they were like explaining to me the rules on how the dual gauge worked, I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Like, the way you build these connections, and these connections will add money to the cities that they're connected to, but you don't run trains to them. But then it's like, any piece of non-dual gauge track that gets built into that network instantly kills all the money. Like, it's just like kills the entire thing. And I'm like, what's the freaking point? Like, so if I build up a good network, there's no way to defend it, because all somebody does is come in from the other direction and be like, oh, I'm going to connect to you with regular gauge. And it instantly kills the value of all of my network.
It sounds like 1849 half the time, too. They're used to...
But 49 is at least cool. I don't know.
No, I enjoy it, especially when I have like weird spider web maps of like narrow gauge track or whatever built throughout it. No, I had a good time with that one. I wouldn't say it's not my favorite, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable one to play. But yeah, I have that vicious streak in me, so that appeals to me on some level. I'll put it this way: the two games I think I feel the most restricted and like, financial bankruptcy Grim Reaper is stalking behind my shoulder is 1830 and 18 Ireland, for sure. That's the ones where I feel the most restricted in what I can do. And out of that, I think
56. 56 is up there too. I know that you guys talked about that one on your podcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've had a couple games where that one got kind of nasty, but I don't know if we were taking advantage of everything we could have, really. So I don't know. A lot of us got panicked and wouldn't take out as much loans as we probably could have got away with. So, but anyway, between, I guess, 1830 and Ireland, I would rather play Ireland for the most part with that restriction.
Kyle, it looks like you got something you want to say, man.
So you just print money in that. You just take loans and just keep taking loans every turn as long as you can.
Yeah.
And then you just ship that thing off to the Canadian and you don't really care about it.
That's how you're supposed to play it.
Yeah. No, we did not play that correctly the first time. All I remember is the yellow phase took forever and we somehow all trapped ourselves in a corner of a map.
I think the main thing about 56 is that initial part and what company you start, because I think there's like 4 companies that desperately want a sharp curved city. and
that's right.
two of them are going to get it. That's like that's the one game I remember playing, because I never I was used to playing 46 and 89, and like the tiles were like just the tiles. I never looked at the tiles, and I remember starting my first company in 1856, and I was like, okay, I'll get a sharp curved city. Where are they?
Oh, wait. That was the one where I took both of them, wasn't it? Like really fast.
Yeah, and I was like, there's two. There's and I was like, no way, this can't be right. And I was like, only freaking two. It's just like that crazy moment where you're just like, what do I do now? Like, I guess I'll build a straight city, and I guess I'm out of this game. I should have known that. But yeah. So that's been my thoughts with Ireland. Another one I've been playing that you had mentioned earlier in your talk. So one thing that 1822. So this is like the darling of the 18xx world right now. You know, like this is everybody's just like fawning over, and I love it. It's like my second favorite 18xx game of all time. I absolutely adore 1822. My last game of this 5-player game, which I think is like optimal player count for that game. 5-player game. Everybody just like missed debt by the skin of their teeth, which is, I think, perfect for 1822. With 6 players, I think 6 and 7 players, you are bound to have players go into debt. Like, you will have players take debt. And if you take debt in that game, you are out. You're done. Like, there's no coming back from that. And so I think 5 players is like that sweet spot where you might take debt if you plan poorly, but if you're smart, you can just barely skate by without taking it. But this really pissed me off in 1822 is we broke the bank before we hit gray. Because and honestly, it wasn't anyone's fault other than the fact that we were all train locked. We didn't know, we couldn't do anything other than just kept letting a train get bought in. And we even started a couple of companies like, oh, when we noticed it happen the first OR, we're like, oh, we got to start a bunch of more companies. And it's still like the bank broke. And me and another player had 2 companies with enough money sitting in it running four trains. We had enough money in our companies to buy an E and a 6 and a 7. We had enough money sitting in our companies to do that because we had planned for it. Because we're like, oh, as soon as that bank breaks gray, because I was running the Seeker and I had that perfect route all the way down. I was just like token, like all my tokens out all the way down through the English Channel, you know. And I was running straight out of London through all of my tokens into the English Channel, and I was going to run a 6 and an E and be making so much freaking money, like insane money. And I was getting ready for it, and gray didn't happen. Like we started looking around as we were going into the OR right before gray was about to happen. And we're like, there's not enough money. And we counted it out. And we're like, there's like less than $300 in the bank right now. What on earth? And a player that was brand new, he had only played 1 game of 1846, and he played 1822 with us. It was his second game ever. He ended up coming in second place, almost winning, because the rest of us were planning for gray, and he was just playing as it came along. And because the bank broke, he almost won, which is fine that he almost won. But it was like, how did that happen? I don't know. Have you experienced this at all, Kyle? Because I've played 1822 like 5 times now, and this is the only time it's happened, but I just found it so weird that it happened.
Yeah, I've never heard of that happening in 22. I mean, we've done stuff like that in Ireland, where the permanents don't even really come out in Ireland. So your
Right.
6s stay around in that way. But besides that, I really haven't had any games that ended early before the main end trains come out.
So that was the main thing that made us think, because we looked around, and I asked the guys, like, did you put enough money in the bank? And I was like mad. I was like, was there enough money in the bank when you started this game? And we went through all the trays and counted it out, and we're like, yeah, there was enough money. And The only thing I can think of is that we should have started more companies early, but then it just didn't seem like a good idea. But we were all running really, really good routes. Like all of our trains, like the LWR. One player had that gray company. The brown company up north, I mean, was running his thing perfectly. I was running the Seeker down south, and I mean, all of us just had beautiful routes. Oh, the purple company was doing super good. That company's fun to play. I like that purple company that comes out in that one. I forget what that one's called. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it's the one that destinates like right across from it. It's like,
oh yeah, I know that one.
It's like you start here, you destinate here in a BM city, and all you need is that 7 minor that goes across. And if you can pull that off, it's like if you see that those companies coming out, it works out so beautifully. But it was such a weird end to 1822 that like it was fun. I had a great time playing it. I ended up pulling off the win, but I went driving home. I was just like, that was so unsatisfying the way that game ended. Like ending 1822 before the permanents come out is just, it's sad. It really is, especially when you're set up that well. Like when you're just like, killing it like that. But I don't know. I was just curious if you guys have had that happen or if anyone else has. But if you have actually been playing, if you guys have actually been playing 1822 and this has happened to you, let me know because I'm just curious. I'm like, it just felt so terrible. But anyways, that's how many times have you guys gotten in? How many plays of 1822 have you guys gotten in since you guys have gotten it to the table?
I think I'm only up to 2. The problem with 1822 is that's, at least for mine and my time frame, because I don't get a whole lot of hours a week I can use for gaming, is one that does not play well online. Like the auction rounds and all that would just take forever. So it's not one I can get a lot of plays in. I think I'm up to 2 or 3 now. So it's one that I'm like starting to kind of figure out, but I don't have a lot of the nuances down yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only had that single play now, but I really want to get it back to the table.
Man, I mean, and you guys have 18xx groups. I'm surprised this isn't hitting the table as much for you guys.
Yeah, we usually start late in the night, though, so it's hard to get that one to the table now.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of our problem. And our problem in Central Iowa is we really have like 3 really dedicated 18xx players that will like, yes, I will play this at the drop of a hat. So that can become an issue at our game nights. You know, if it's like the 3 of us and then 2 other non-18xx players show up, it's kind of like, that's not happening tonight. So I get vastly more plays of them online than I do across the board these days, very much so.
I know one of the biggest kind of things that sucks is 1822 is a nightmare to play online. And in fact, like at this point, I'm not even willing to touch it because those stock rounds online would probably end up taking a month. It's just ridiculous trying to do that asynchronously. So
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I played 1822. I think I played it 3 times. And all 3 of those times, it took like 6, 7, 8 hours. Like it was like an all-day thing, right? And I went down and played 1822 in Columbus. And those guys, I played with them. We played a 6-player game in 4 hours. Because like we got done playing 1817 and it was like 6 o'clock at night. And they were like, 22, let's play 22. And I was like, guys, I really don't want to leave here at 2 o'clock in the morning because it's a 2-hour drive back to my house. And they were like, 22 is a 4-hour game. And I was like, no, it's not. It's an all-day game. They're like, you're playing 22 wrong. And I sat down with those guys, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. And when we played our last game of 22, it really moved. Like it was on rails. And I was really excited about that it really can go pretty fast. I think there's always going to be like 1 or 2 stock rounds, the initial one, and generally 1 more that will go on for quite a while. And in fact, in the last game we played, the three minor companies that came or private companies came out were both 2Ps and a Pullman on the same turn. That stock round took a long time. Oh, that was a long stock round. And I was in both of the 2Ps, and I had so much money, and I was like, bump up on this one, bump up on this one. Well, actually, it was more like someone outbids me on this one, someone outbids me on this one. And I'm just like, whichever one was cheaper, I'm just going back and forth between them. And it was such a good game, though. I love 22. 22 is an amazing game.
Absolutely.
I wish there was a better way to play that online so we could get in more plays of it. But
yeah, no, it's got the same problem. I had some weird, dumb idea. I went on Board Game Arena and started a game of Keyflower, and I am so regretting that I ever did that. Like, I'm just like, can this game be over, please?
And you don't want to be the jackass that just ghosts it.
That's what I'm at this point. It just comes up and I'm like, pass. Pass. Because the problem is, like, at this point, I've made 1 or 2 critical mistakes. I'm like, I'm not in this anymore anyway, so just pass, so I can get this stupid thing over with. But yeah, the auction games online like that, yeah, that's not a great format.
Kyle, what have you been playing recently, man? What have you gotten to the table?
We've been playing mostly 56 a lot. And
cool.
That's one of the group's favorites. So, besides that, last week when we just had a Euro day, we just played a bunch of Euros, got 18 back to the table.
Oh, okay. So this actually bleeds just into something that I also wanted to talk about, which was other train games. Games. Okay. So we all know who Anthony Fryer is. We all know who that guy is, right? Here, we all know his thing. He was the co-host of Heavy Cardboard, and he literally quit Heavy Cardboard because he didn't want to spend time playing games that were not train games. Now, I've got to say, I fight that so hard. A little bit because of my job, but also a little bit because, like, I have different groups that play different styles of games. And, like, my wife isn't into 18xx, but she likes Euros, so I try to do that with her. But I feel that, man. Like, there's a bunch of parts of me that would, in an instant, drop everything and devote myself to nothing but 18xx. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. If I could play 18xx every day, I would. And if that was the only thing I got to play, I'd be happy.
Yeah. I think I was actually talking about this with some of my game group a while back, because there was a short time there where, it was really looking like, I might have to leave this area and move to a different part of Iowa, or no, actually I've been to a different state.
Cleveland.
Yeah. You just have to get a university to hire my wife, and that's where we'll go. But anyway, we were really debating on whether we were going to have to move or not. And I was kind of sitting there thinking about, well, then I got to find another game group. And anyway, but it was the good potential I'd be moving to a bigger city. And I'm like, maybe I could find it like just a train game group. So like, I'm perfectly happy to play some more games and Heavy Euros and other stuff and things like that. But at the same time, if I ended up just falling into all 18xx games and had a group that I liked and enjoyed and had the time to play them with, it wouldn't bother me a bit to just do that. It would probably help out my board game budget a lot over time anyway. So that I would be like, oh, this new niche, I have to buy everything there. And yeah.
I think right now I'm like, if I could play 9 18xx games and 1 Phil Eklund game and then just keep that rotation going, I think I would do it. But I get a lot of gaming in. So I have 3 game groups a week that I'll play with. So I have a Thursday night group, which is generally, I just invite the people in my 18xx group, and we'll either do a short 18xx game or like a winsome and a heavy euro or something like that. Or, and generally when I say heavy euro, I'm talking like splatter, you know, like we do like the really economic crunchy stuff. And that's what, I mean, we played 4X and Iberian Gauge the last time my Thursday group came over. And then I have a Friday night group, which is me and my wife and another couple. And we all like heavy Euros. So this is my one night that I get to play Euros, okay? And then I alternate my weekends between going to game group and playing like whatever is going to be on the table, or I'll bring whatever's the hotness is. And that's kind of like, because of my job, I still do that. Like I have to try to get some of the new hotness played and see what it's all about, and like judge harshly people's components that don't use Panda. Like, you know, look at them and be like, this production could have been better. Definitely not a Panda game, you know? And then my other weekends are every other weekend. I'll usually do 18xx. So we're playing 1862 tomorrow at my friend's house. And so that's generally the way that it goes. And I like it. And plus I get like constant games of 18xx online with you guys. I generally keep 3 or 4 games juggling at any one time. I know I play 2 with Andy generally at all times, and I usually have auxiliary ones that I'll plug in and out of. So I get a lot of gaming in, but I could in an instant drop all of it for 18xx, just 18xx.
Yeah, that's what I say. I think like I'm not seeking to do that, but if that aligned to where that happened, it wouldn't bother me, and then I would just, you know, play solo war games or Phil Eklund games at home on my own and play 18xx elsewhere and be perfectly fine with that. I think the only thing I would want out of that maybe a group that mostly played 18xx but threw in some Age of Steam, because you know Age of Steam is still that's a good time. That's kind of my biggest bridge game between a lot of the Ames group and my 18xx obsession. You know, Age of Steam is one we can all play and fairly be happy.
Randall Nelson just says he loves war games, and you suck. War games are the worst. War games are garbage.
Oh, no.
I am like the anti-Edward when it comes to this. Like I just I go toe to toe with people when it comes to war games. It's like war games are the worst in my opinion. I hate them.
No. That's what, Joe Salen keeps doing in my group. Like he'll buy, like he just got Navajo Wars in some trade and then tried to play it once and like got diseased and it all fell apart. And he's like, Andy, do you want to buy this? I'm like, yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I play them a lot at home too. The problem I think I would get with, you know, and this even goes for Euros and war games and civilization games, is if you give me a game that starts hitting the price point of an 18xx and the length of an 18xx, then I'm just like, nah, I'd just rather play the 18xx now.
Okay, so I'm going to make a confession, because I have this actually kind of in my notes because I wanted to talk about this. Guys, I don't want to play Age of Steam anymore.
Oh, really?
And here's the thing. I love Age of Steam. It's like in my top 3 games of all time. I love Age of Steam. But honestly, a lot of the Age of Steam games, I could almost play in 18. And time is never really a factor when it comes to my game days. So it's never like, that's never something I have to balance. But most of the time when I would play Age of Steam, I could play an 18xx. And if I don't have the time, I could play Chicago Express in like 45 minutes when Age of Steam could take 2 hours easily. And I find Age of Steam constantly falling into this hole where like I would play it. And if my group wanted to play it, I'm down. Like I will play it. But if the option is 18xx or Age of Steam, I'm always going 18xx. Yeah. And then I'm not going to lie, if I had the option to do like a heavy Euro and a winsome instead of Age of Steam, I'm probably going to choose that too. Because everything Age of Steam gives me, I get from 18xx. So if I'm going to play Age of Steam, I almost feel like I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to be like, 18xx is so much better than this. It's falling into this weird chasm of games, and I'm just like, I don't know. I wanted to say it. I just want to put it into the ether.
Yeah, to some extent I can see that. I think for me, Age of Steam is different enough. I think the one in the train game world that causes me the most difficulty of that is when I could play Age of Steam or when I could play Tramways. Then that's when I go, oh, damn. Like, I think I'd rather play Age of Steam, but I do like Tramways. But they're kind of similar enough that causes my juxtaposition there. But as far as like Winsome's, and by Winsome, I'm talking Chicago Express and Cube Rails mostly. But that compared to Age of Steam, compared to 18xx, they're different enough to me where like one doesn't completely, fulfill the need of the other one. So I could play all of those and it never really gets boring for me or bothers me or anything like that. But yeah, no, the Tramways, bringing in sort of another train game, throwing Tramways into the mix, so that then it gets murky for me. Then it's like, yeah.
I've gotten to the point now, and I haven't played Tramways that much, but I would always play Age of Steam over Tramways. That's never, I don't think that's ever like an argument that I'm going to have to broach. Like, that's never going to be a choice for me. And I love Alvin Viard, but Age of Steam is just a better game. I want to hear, Kyle, what your thoughts on my Age of Steam kind of thing.
I guess yeah, I can see that. I didn't play Age of Steam for a very long time after I got into 18xx. And I still kept getting more and more maps and not even playing them. And now that it seems like once you get to a certain level with your 18xx plays, you'll go back to playing those things because you kind of miss it. It's like a little vacation from 18xx. You don't have to think as much, and it's like a more of a straightforward game than a whole 18xx is.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see that, and I also kind of get the fact that like I have like 50 Age of Steam maps, and I've played like 6 of them.
Yeah, that's a disease. It really is a disease. I'm not much better off.
I got to tell you guys, though. I got to tell you guys this. Well, something to say about that. I have the expansion to Tramways. I haven't even touched it. The Paris, New York board. Have you even played that, Andy?
I've got one play of Paris in and one play of New York in. The one that's really sad is I got the Denver map when I went to HeavyCon, and that's like the one I haven't got to play and the one but that's more of a player count thing because from what Alvin Viard said, that's like a 3, it's good. At a 4, it's vicious. At a 5, somebody's going to have a really bad 2-hour experience. And I've never had like the 4 people who want to play Tramways at the right night to actually do it. But I think the thing that's different for me, though, that I think I like Age of Steam and 18xx can exist for me in both worlds is, 18xx has a lot of wonderful crunchy decisions and kind of this long-term scope that's really awesome. What I never see in an 18xx, though, and even to some extent 1822, is where an auction starts and everyone's feeling pretty good about the auction. And then somebody goes, okay, I'm going to bid 13. And the next person goes 14. And you see the person who just bid 13 go, oh God, I have to, like, you just see them starting to calculate in their head how much more worth it's going to be to continue this battle. And even within the initial auctions of 18xx, I never really get that experience. And that's kind of what I live for in the Age of Steam is not the track building, not the running the cubes. That minute when somebody goes, oh God, how worth it is it? And that kind of keeps me coming back to Age of Steam. Plus, like I said, for me, I'm much more likely to be able to play Age of Steam with the Ames area people than I am an 18xx game. So that for me, I'll keep it in rotation for a good long time.
Agree. I think you make some fair points. I just find it keeps falling into this just this dark place where it's this like either not worth it or just like I'd almost rather just play something else. And I don't know. Age of Steam just gives me more to crunch on, I think, than 18xx gives me more to crunch on than Age of Steam, which is what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for that deep gameplay. I'm looking for the length that 18xx provides allows for deeper gameplay. I think. I don't think if you made an 18xx that played in an hour, it would be very good.
Nope. The other thing though with that too is like I can empathize with that feeling because I have that feeling for certain groups of Euro games. If you've got a Euro game and you bring it and you're like wanting me to play it at a game night, if it falls to within the range of say just a little too complex for a family game, like a game you can play with non-gamers, your Ticket to Rides and things like that. If it's just above that, but not at least at medium to medium heavy Euro, that is like the death zone for me for a game.
So everything Tasty Minstrel has ever made.
Yeah, kind of. So. No, and it really is.
Looking, I'm like, that's Yokohama, Orleans, Scoville, Belfort.
No, Scoville I'll play. I do like Scoville, but yeah, Orleans. Yeah, if I never see that game again, I'll be fine. But no, I mean, that legitimately is because if it's a game I can play with my wife and kids, I would rather just do that at home and get brownie points with the family. And if it's not, then that's what I go to Game Group for. And if it's going to be, around the complexity of a family game, I just would have rather have stayed home and played the family game. And so it's this weird death zone. And also I found if I go game night after game night playing games at that level, I will become an incredibly unpleasant gamer to be around. Because there was like 4 weeks in Ames where that's what was hitting the table every night. And about the third week in, somebody put down Isle of Skye. They're like, here, Andy, it has auctions. You'll like this. And we got down to like half an hour. And they're like, what do you think? I fucking hate this game. Like, why am I here? This is crap. And then somebody
Isle of Skye is a fine game.
No, it is. That's the thing. So we played Agricola, and then it was like a weight was lifted from my shoulders. I'm like, oh my God, serenity. And then the next week I came back and played Isle of Skye, and I'm like, what? This is a good game. I don't know what was wrong with me. Oh, I was just playing too many light games.
I can see that. So I'm gonna force Kyle into this conversation here because I'm actually gonna ask him about something because there's a game that he posted that he played that I don't know anything about, and I've tried to coerce stuff out of him and online, and I haven't gotten very much information. But I really want to know about this game because this might be my next purchase. I want to know about 1873. Hasban, 1873, right?
Oh, Hasban. Ah, yes. This is...
Tell me what makes it cool. Tell me what makes it good. Because I saw the map, and I was, like, in love. Like, when I saw the map, I got, like, ooh.
It is a Euro game that got turned into an 18xx game. So, it was originally Euro. So, it has these weird... mining companies that you can merge together to form a bigger mining company. But once they do that, they cannot build track anymore. So they don't run trains ever. They just have a printed amount that they run for. And there's this national track that kind of runs around the outside, and through the middle parts, it's the broad gauge
Uh-huh.
that's on the map. And once they connect to that, they flip over, and you can buy bigger trains with them, and you make more money. And it works just like they work just like minor companies in 18xx where they pay 50-50. And so these little miners eventually they become really bad eventually
Right.
because the trains never rust in this game. Money for the maintenance, and you're going to eventually start making nothing on these if you keep them around with low trains. The train deck is very tight, so whenever these things buy trains, it takes a train out of the train deck also. So it's very, very fast in this way. There's weird routes that the major companies have to build immediately on their first turn. This is like a destination, and they always cost money, so that comes out of your starting money. And so the companies aren't very powerful per se. It's more of the mining companies are more powerful at times, and then it flips over at the end game, and the train companies are very, very good.
Can you guys see the map on my board?
Yeah.
So Andy, this is have you seen this game before?
I have never played it. I've heard about it. I think I read the rules at one point. And yeah, I know a little bit about it, but I've never had the chance to play it. I've been interested in it. The one I was thinking about is I had read some forums where some people said, there was people in the chat talking about this, that 18 Rur was similar but a better game. So I was looking more at that one lately, but I haven't had a chance to play any of them like that.
Yeah, I haven't played Rur either. All I know is that Kyle posted a picture of this board, and this board, like, this is the starting board with all of this stuff on it. And, like, I'm not going to lie, it was like I was looking at pornography. It was...
Yeah. No, I get that. What's, weird for me too is after playing 18xx is how much Stark art is appealing to me now. So, I'll play a board, I'll look at an 18xx board and be like, oh, that's beautiful. And then, other people in my grain group are like, what's wrong with you?
Well, okay.
I guess another really interesting about Hearthstone is the initial auction up to a number, and then that's the number that you're paying for all of the privates. So then everybody can buy at that price, and then once everybody passes, it goes down $5, and then everybody can buy at that price, and it keeps going down to that to zero.
So it's like a Dutch auction.
So your order will change. So when you go down a level, the first person that passed gets to go first.
So they're pulling out to get a better go at it late. Oh, that could be interesting.
Right.
So my question to you is, where do you kind of rank this amongst 18xx games? Would you say this is like one of the better ones you've played, or this was just kind of like pretty good? I mean,
so is it a food chain magnet, or is it a duck dealer in the Splotter world? That's what we.
It's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that right now. It is very, very different.
Yeah.
And knowledgeable about those mining companies to do well in the game. So it's definitely not for beginners.
Okay.
And it's not for the more shenanigans people.
So
It's in that,
it's a got to play your game well, kind of got to run your
yeah,
company
it's
well.
between. There's a few shenanigans you can do, but it's more of manipulating your companies to gain your money.
See, and to me, it doesn't always have to be shenanigans in the form of, oh, I can do this to screw you over or that. To me, I like shenanigans in the fact of like, I pulled off this really cool thing that you didn't see coming. Like, and it helped me. It wasn't like I'm screwing you over, but like I just did this cool thing. Like,
Right.
that's just as interesting to me in an 18xx.
Yeah. So,
I think at this point with those, and I think 1873 would be included in this, is I've played a lot of titles now, but I don't feel like I've explored 18xx enough yet that I could just be shutting down titles. So if someone's like, oh, hey, we played this one, it's got this mechanic, I would be like, nah, I played 100 of this. I don't need another one of those. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still just exploring the genre so much that, I mean, you slap one in front of me, like, okay, let's give it a shot.
Yeah. So I know I recently played another one that was, oh man, it was really good too. It was I think it's one of my favorite ones I've ever played, but I asked a bunch of people afterwards because I never hear anyone talk about this one, but 18 Dixie. So I played 18 Dixie and I loved it. And just absolutely thought it was just a glorious game. Like playing through it, like it did everything I loved. Cool map, great private powers. It had 2 auctions in it. Really amazing miner. The way the miners worked was, I think, the best way miners have ever been implemented in the game. I think that the miners are beautiful in this game. And I felt that the game was super, super good. So I asked a whole bunch of other people about this one, and they were all like, eh. I think I even asked you, Kyle, and you're like, eh. And there's one rule, okay? Because I want to talk about this. There's one rule, and the rule is you can only buy 1 train per company, per OR, until the permanents come out, which is very limiting, okay? It slows the game down a lot. We forgot that rule. We forgot that was a rule. And so we were buying as many trains as we wanted. Like, we were just playing it like a normal 18xx with train buying rules. What?
Yeah, we didn't when we played it.
Okay,
and so really stunted the game.
I want to tell you this, Kyle. I emailed the designer and I told him, I was like, hey, I just played 18 Dixie. I really loved it. But we forgot this rule. This is the way we played it. And I told him, I was like, I've reached out to a lot of my other 18xx friends, and they all said, hey, the game was really cool, but this one rule made them not want to ever play it again. And I had that answer from like 5 different people. The designer emailed me back, and this is what he said. He's like, don't play with that rule. He's like, when I play this game with my group, I don't play with that rule. He's like, that rule's just in there to like make it less brutal for new players. He's like, I would just leave the rule out. If you want to make it a little gentler, add an extra 4 train. But other than that, just leave it. Just play without that rule. And I was like, oh, really? This is the way the designer prefers to play it for like a more brutal experience? And I was like, sold. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you've ever played 18 Dixie and the only thing you couldn't get over was that train buying limitation, per the designer, just don't play with it. And I think it would make the game a much better experience anyway, because it gives you more of a train rush. There's more stuff to do. But man, if you have played Dixie and something about it rubbed you the wrong way, go back and play without the train buying rule. And I think that it's going to really, really up the experience for you guys.
Okay.
So I'm telling you, Kyle, go into it, play it again, and see what you think about it, because, I thought that game was outstandingly good. You haven't played this one, have you, Andy?
No, I haven't had a chance with that one. We're so backlogged in games to play across the table at this point. And what was hilarious really for us is Trent, who's on my podcast. Like, I think at this point he has I know he has more than I do. But Trent has an interesting budget capability because he got into Magic when it first came out and then saved all his cards. So like he literally has like a safety deposit box with cards that he can sell for like hundreds of dollars. So he's like, I want to buy some 18X games, All right, so a couple more Magic cards on the auction. All right, now I'm buying 5 of them. So yeah, he's got a lot of titles now. But no, Dixie, I think, is one he talked about getting, but I don't think he has now. But I'm pretty sure at this point, like, we've got 1854 to play, and then I think
what's 54?
54. The 44, 54 one.
Austria. Yeah, Austria.
Yeah, we did 44, but not 54. So that's on the list. We got, I think, 1835 on the list. We got literally like a backlog of like 6 or 7 now to play across the table, which is really hard for us to do anyway, and I don't see that improving.
Now, Andy, when you do play 1835, make sure you use the Clemens variant on that, the starting packet.
Mm-hmm.
Because one player, if you don't use it, one player will lose. If you guys figure that out.
Yeah. Now that happened in last summer. We finally did a full game of 18OE, and we did starting packets on that one. But still, there's still a lot of token placement and all that. And I uttered this phrase at one point, and I looked at the other 2 guys playing with me, and I'm like, the sad part is, it's taken me 16 hours to realize I lost this in the first 30 minutes.
Well, there in 35, you can force a guy to lose before he's even taken a turn in the starting packet.
I love it.
That's hilarious.
All right, so there are a couple more things that I did want to talk about. Just kind of crossing off the list and just kind of getting your guys' opinions. We're just talking about games, guys. 18 Cleveland. Me and Andy are working with a guy on Twitter that goes by 8-Bit Matt. You probably have talked to him at some point. But he's in our online 18XX group, and we are kind of putting 18 Cleveland through its paces. So this is like, I'm going on my like 7th or 8th play of 18 Cleveland, and at this point, I'm doing like really weird stuff. Like, I'm just like trying to break the game in a way, sort of, but just seeing what happens and like just playing around with the system. And I'm just curious, like, what your guys' thoughts, because I'm starting to get some growing opinions on, after like getting close to 10 plays, on some thoughts about 18 Cleveland that I'm ready to start articulating. But I wanted to try to read you guys first. Now, I know you've played this one, Kyle, but I think you played with the wrong rules. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my bad. We played it the next day with the correct rules, and things worked much better.
Okay, so you did get to play it with the right rules. Okay.
No, I never did, but
he did. I did show some other people the correct rules. I missed the one about the RTA starting on its own. That was a long depression that happened.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, no, that was not so good. No, I'm definitely evolving some opinions on that, and I feel like at this point I can time. Like, I think one of the biggest complaints some people had about this was feeling like you can't time the depression, or that it's too unstable with that. Something about the train rush and depression was bothering people. And I feel like at about now 6-ish plays, I don't know precisely, like I don't really fear the depression anymore. Like, when I see it coming, I'm like, okay, I planned for this. We'll be fine. So I don't fear it anymore. Like, I know that's coming. In fact, I start looking at like, what can I do? So like, yeah, in the game we're in, Joe went for like, I wonder if I can get a lot in the RTA, if that matters, strategy. And some other people had, so I have like no shares in the RTA at this point, the big national railway.
And I have all the shares.
Yeah, like all the shares. So what I've been doing.
Hold on. I threw, just so for some background, I threw 2 6-share companies that I owned into the RTA. I just threw them in at the 4 train too. Like, I didn't wait for this. At the 4 train, I had Shaker running with 4 2 trains, had 6 shares. I parred another company with I parred another company and literally took two trains over and just let it go. Just goodbye.
Yeah. And but now it's fun because now, like, because in this game with the National, there's a board of directors. So the priority deal marker is the president chair of the RTA. And then the people beside that president are going to make tile lays. There's been a couple times where I've been on that board. I haven't been president, but I was on the board, and I'm like sitting here, basically my thought process. I don't want to do anything to help the RTA because I have no shares in it. Can I lay a tile that helps me and doesn't really do squat for anybody's RTA? No. Okay, I'm not laying a tile this round. You can just make that call if you want. Or I put, huh?
Dick move.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, that's what it is. Like, I don't care if the RTA, I don't have anything in the RTA, so who cares if that, nah, you know what? No, I'm not. Or like, you know, it would be even more fun at this point if I was president, because I'd be like, where can I put this token in the stupidest place possible right now? Because it wouldn't do me any good. There's no reason for me to help the RTA at this point. Like I would be the corrupt city councilman that's just like destroying this public railway at this point with indecision and bad things. No, the thing I do like about 18 Cleveland is it can be nasty. Like if you time things wrong, you can lose a lot of value. And this happened like the second game I played at Gen Con with it. Like I was dead. Like things were absorbed. And so I'm sitting there taking my moves, talking through it. I was like, okay, I upgrade this tile. I token here, run for $30. The CEO jumps out the window. Things like that.
So I want to articulate some thoughts on 18 Cleveland and see what you guys think. First of all, I think Shaker Heights as a company is way too overpowered. I think it is
I'm leaning that way, yeah.
By far the best. And I even talked to the designer, and he said Shaker Heights wins. The person that's pars Shaker Heights wins 70% of the games. And to me, that's insane, isn't it?
I would lean that way. Yeah. After the last few plays, I've definitely been sitting there like, because it looked like for a while in our last game that nobody was going to par Shaker Heights in the first stock round. Like for a bit, I don't know why I interpreted that, but I felt like that. People were doing things that looked like everyone was going to leave Shaker alone. I'm like, that seems like a dumb idea. And then, but I wonder what would happen in the game if that actually occurred.
Well, what happened is 3 people didn't have enough money to par a company. How much they spent in the stock. So I was one of the few people. I got no privates in that auction. So I parred ABC. And since 2 other players didn't have enough money to par a company, I only ended up, ABC was fully funded, and I only owned 40% of it. So I said, F that. I'm not going to run a company for 40%. So I just sold off all my shares, tanked the stock price, and just started a different company. And that's when I went over to Shaker Heights. I was like, I'm just going to go start Shaker Heights. Screw you guys.
But I can get where you're coming from, because I really do feel that way. It feels like whoever goes into the first stock round with priority deal, if you don't use that to par Shaker, you are stupid. Like you are doing something bad.
And now, Andy, I just want to say something, and this is not me trying to be like a dick. This is just me like just talking. Now, you saw how much money I was running Shaker for, but my strategy was like, I'm not going to run it for very long. I'm throwing it away, and I purposely threw it away. Like that was very evident that I threw it away. And I'm just saying, like, if I kept running that company, I don't know if anybody would even be close to me right now with the way the games turned out. Like, I would have ran because of how much money I had then. Like, I was almost able to par 2 companies at $100 at the same time with how much money I was running Shaker for.
Wow. Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely agree that I think Shaker is an overpowered company in that game. I mean, if there's any, I guess the 2 things I have issues with the game, even though I really enjoy 18 Cleveland, don't get me wrong. But there's two things I've had as an issue with it through plays. One is that I think Shaker is too overpowered, and something needs to dampen that back down a bit. And I also...
I mean, why does it get to move first? Just don't make it move first. I think that might take care of it.
Yeah, that would be interesting to try. But I think that's an issue. The other thing that I find problematic about 18 Cleveland is there's a rule that if somebody can peg out the company, i.e. hit the biggest stock value, that the game just ends. And when I talked to the designer and stuff, he's like, I've never seen this happen, and I'm not sure it can. I'm like, then either A, your stock market's too big and you need to chop it down, or B, don't have that as a rule. Like, why would you put a rule in that can't possibly be obtained? And I don't know if anyone's ever really answered that to a degree where I'm like, where it still makes sense to me. But I mean, that it's not a big deal just because I assume that's never going to actually happen. So I never plan on it. But it seems like it's just, I wanted that mechanism in there. So it's in the rule book, even though it can't ever really actually happen.
That's, I don't know. I'm curious to see if it could happen because you jigsaw in that game, or you don't jigsaw, you actually just move over.
Right.
So I think there's a possibility if you can get a company part at 100 on the first stock round and get sold out, maybe.
Maybe. It just seems like such a long shot that it seems like it's not something you could build a strategy around.
Yeah. So a couple of other things is I feel the green phase, I think you make too much money. And I get it. I get the thing. But I do not like that on this third stock round of every game I played 18 Cleveland with, everybody can par a company at 100. Every single player. And what happens is what generally happens when around stock round 3 is you put roughly about, there's usually around $6,000 to $7,000 worth of cash in companies at that point in time in the game. It's ridiculous to me, like that there should be that much money in companies all on the board at the same time. And I'm just sitting there looking at that, like, how do you even plan for a train rush? Like, there's the train rush becomes such a impossible thing to wrap your mind around because you can't predict what's going to happen with $7,000 sitting on the table to buy trains with. And it's just and I've heard that before that and granted, 18 Cleveland's its own game, so it shouldn't be compared to others. But so one thing that I have heard a big complaint about from 18 Cleveland, and I'm starting to really agree with it, is so much of 18XX is planned based on what you think the train market's going to do. And so you look at the train deck, you figure out okay, he's probably going to buy a train. He's probably going to buy a train. That means I should get that last 3 train, which means I'll be able to save myself before those 4s come out. And you can do that. That's how you play 18XX well. You know what I mean? Is playing the train rush. And I feel in a game where you cannot predict the train rush at all is almost sours me a little bit because I added it up, Andy. In our last game, there was enough money on the tables when we were in 3 trains. We were in 3s, and there was enough money in 1 operating round to push us to 8s. That's how much money was in companies. If everybody bought the max amount of trains that they possibly could have, we would have pushed the game to 8s.
Yeah. Yeah, and that could be it. I think for me, when I play 18 Cleveland too, is it's in that category of, I don't know, I hate to use the term here for that, but it's just kind of a fun one. Like I guess for me, I don't take 18 Cleveland as serious as I do some other titles. It's just kind of fun to run through the depression, pull out, see kind of what comes out on top. And to me, as far as 18XX goes, it's short enough that doesn't really bother me. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't describe it as a game free of defects if that makes sense. There's definitely some it could have a little more spit and polish put on it. I think there's some rough edges in the sense of not like, fine grain rough sandpaper, like, oh, I just stepped on a rusty nail rough edge or something like that. But I still really enjoy playing it. I just understand going in that it's going to be a bit of an oddball game. That I just don't take a lot seriously when I play it. I'm just like, hey, we're going to try some things. We're going to do this. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me and I enjoy it, but yeah, I could see where the defects in the game do bother people.
Yeah. And we're just at this point, I mean, we're just doing stupid stuff in the game just to see what happens. And I think we threw so many companies into the RTA that nobody's shared out, and there's no more companies to start.
Yeah, I know. The only one left to actually like buy and par, and everyone's like, but it's gonna suck.
It's a briefcase. It is made in the game to be a briefcase company, and we are literally like, that's the only company even left. And so Tony parred it. He doesn't have enough shares, and everyone else is like, I'm not buying that. You can just par it at 30%. Par the company at 30%, and we're just gonna let you die on it. You're gonna have to shed shares to start it. So
yeah,
and
yeah,
then me being at the bottom of the row and everyone else not being shared up means Tony sells something to help par it. Somebody else buys it. Tony sells something, and then the next person buys, and I'm not gonna get anything from it. I'm like, sucks.
Yeah, I think really though, if you're talking the ones within the 4-hour timescape, like I put 18 Cleveland's kind of in that 4 to 5 hour mark game, like a short one. I think
if you know how to run the RTA well, I think you can play it in 4 hours.
Yeah, if you do the rules right, definitely.
I'm not even saying like do the rules right. I'm just saying
right,
like,
but
you're playing with people that know how to run the RTA, because that can bog down a lot of times.
Yeah, those calculations can be monstrous. I think out of all those games, though, probably the one at this point I would like to play the most is either 1849 or 1860, are within that time frame, and I really like both of those.
Both are great games.
Yeah.
Kyle, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to put on there for 18 Cleveland at least? I saw you shaking your head a lot. I know you only played it once and you played with the wrong rules, but
yeah, I've ran through it a few times here by myself, a few times just to get a little better feel. I have to agree with you that that one company is super powerful.
The shaker. Yeah.
And the map is very rough. It's very uneven in places.
It's almost terrible the way that the free dinks work. Like there's too many dinks on that map for it to be free dinks. Because I was thinking about that and I was like, one of the few free dink games that we've played is 18 Mechs, right? Because there's not a ton of games that just give you free dinks. There's some games that let you skip them, but there's not many that give you free dinks, right? And so Mechs is free dinks, but at the most from one city chain to another, you're going to pick up, I think the maximum you can pick up is like 3 dinks. From what the longest stretch on that map you can grab is 3 dinks,
I thought there was one where you could do 4 in the middle if you can make all the stars align to do that. But
but in Cleveland, like 5 dinks is like normal. From like one city to the next, it's like, oh, if I build my track like this, I can hit 18 dinks going. Like there are seriously like some runs with the RTA where you're picking up like 30 dinks in that game. Like,
no, there was one point in the depression in the last game where I was making more money off dinks than I was cities. But yeah, that's one I play because I think it's interesting, and in a sense, it shows what you could do with the system when you get a little crazy with it. But is it a game without flaw? No, there's definitely some things that need really polished up on it, I think, before it becomes a good game in that sense.
So real quick before we finish off, so we'll probably be done in a little bit here, but let's talk about a game that has a ton of polish and has no faults, and that's 1880. Okay. Just kidding a little bit there, but I think we've all played 1880. I know we've all played 1880 because I've played 1880 with both of you guys. 1880 is very near and dear to my heart. I think it's a wonderfully made game. I think it's really, really cool. But I I love it. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I really don't have any flaws with it. But I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit because we're playing Andy, this is your second game of 1880 on
Yeah.
with me. And so we're playing online. I've probably played 1880 about 6 times at this point. I'm probably going into my 7th game. And I really feel like I know the game really well at this point, like really well. And every time I play it, I get to do cool new stuff. And I really like it because of that. Like I always get to try new stuff when I play it, you know? And so I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on 80 because I want to come back to me because I had a conversation with another person that played 80 with me and he had a lot of negative to say about it and I wanted to talk about it. So what are your thoughts on 80 overall?
You can go ahead and go first on that one, Kyle, if you want.
So 80, overall, I have mixed feelings.
All right, cool. I want to see if they match up with the other guys, so I'm curious.
As a game, I really enjoy it for the route building and that stuff. I very much dislike the tile composition.
Okay.
Brown.
That I would say is almost its biggest hindrance is there's no brown tile manifest for regular track.
Regular track, yeah.
So once you upgrade to green, but man, I think that almost makes it see that's a positive to me in some ways because that means when you lay green, you really got to think about it. It's an engineering game through and through.
Yes.
Like it is not a stock game. It is all about engineering.
And you must par your first company at 100. You must.
Yeah.
You must. If you do not, you will be behind. You will be behind.
Yeah.
Every single time you go to those +5, +10.
Yeah.
You will be behind eventually. And then the 100 guys will always get to the 2040 first. And that is a lot of the game. Is getting to that spot.
True. So Andy, before you go, I wanted to just say something about the engineering and the green track. And so I'm going to share my screen real quick. So I've played 1880 a lot. So Kyle, if you've played 1880, you can judge a little bit about what's, yeah. So I parred on my first turn. And so this is just me knowing 1880 well. I parred HKR and the Seeker. And I parred HKR at 100 and Seeker at 90 to run back to back. I got the ferry and the Taiwan private, and I built my track so that there is not a single player that can come into the West. There's nowhere for them to come.
Yep.
It is all owned by me. There's nowhere for me to be cut off. It is completely owned by me up here in the West. And this is really weird. Nobody came up north, Kyle, which is funny, which is why I love this game, because it's so different every time. Last time we played, the north was full of stuff from the beginning.
Wow, that JJ tile is north of that is weird too.
Yeah. Almost everyone makes that a dink. Yeah, everyone. That's like always dink that tile. Andy, you might want to take that move back. No, but I loved so one thing I actually did in this game is I parred these back to back. And since I was running to Taiwan with my foreign investor for like $160, I literally controlled the train rush in the 3+ with the HKR and prolonged it for like 4 operating rounds running this Taiwan route with both of these companies. Which was really, really crazy that I was able to like, and again, like I'm not whatever, but like I just love that playing that game that much, I was able to see that stuff is like, oh, if I put these back to back, because I part HKR, I think it was the first one to part company, and I put it last and then put it back to back with the company so that I could manipulate that turn order and when we went into stock rounds as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
So before I get into some of the other stuff, Andy, what were you? I just wanted to just talk about the engineering for a little bit and how you can use that to your advantage. What do you think about 1880, Andy?
I'm actually enjoying it. The first game I played of it, I was a little bit lost because of the way the stock rounds are situational. They're not something you can plan on being, 2 operating rounds and then the stock round, 2 operating rounds and then the stock round. It kind of, once I got my head around that, things started making sense. I think for me, like, I don't have a strong preference for either a stock game or an engineering game. I can kind of appreciate both for what they're trying to do. 1880, though, I find that the 00 games tend to be ones I like in the sense that they show what you can really do when you push the system to almost to an absurd limit in some way. So with like 1844, you got like 5 kinds of companies you can do. In 1880, you've got this weird stock round doesn't necessarily come if the trains are bought in a certain fashion. And I haven't done 1854 yet, but I'm enjoying it just because it shows what you can do with the 18XX system when you really are like, hey, I could do this, but what happens if I tweak this here? How does that then make this game different? So I'm really enjoying it from that perspective. Like, I'm kind of to the point now where if somebody said, hey, do we want to play 1830? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd have a good time, but it's not something that I'm going, yeah, I really want to go be playing 1830. Like, I like it falls into the category of the games I like because it does a lot of weird stuff. So that makes it interesting to me to try that. I like I said, that's probably one of my favorite kind of games to play because I like pulling those levers and seeing what that does to the situation. But it doesn't feel as like vicious to me. Like, I'm not looking at it going, oh God, I'm going to go bankrupt. It's like, nah, I'll be fine. I may not win, but I'll be fine. So
let me put this out. And this was actually Trent. Me and Trent kind of had a conversation about 1880 after he played it. And
was this the first time too? Because I remember he was really frustrated by it. His first time.
And some of the points he brought up were valid, but I thought it made for a good thought. So I really like 1880. And one of the things that was brought up is there's a lot of extra in this game. So we're kind of right now tentatively just calling this Shenanigans and McGuffins. McGuffins are basically things that are different in an 18XX game that differ from 1830. Like, that would be what's a MacGuffin, 1880 has all the MacGuffins. Like, it has everything is a MacGuffin in that. How much it takes to par a company, how you capitalize, stock rounds, operating rounds, everything. Yeah. Everything. The private company auction, everything is a freaking MacGuffin in this game, right? So that being said, he's like, there's a lot of levers to pull, and I feel like it's just Chrome for Chrome's sake. My thought, I feel that every single addition in 1880 gives you a higher level of control than any other 18XX game. So to me, what you're allowed to do in 1880 gives you such an insanely high level of control in the game. So you get to decide, what are you parring your company at, 20, 30, or 40%, which is huge. So you and Trent literally just both parred companies at 20% as your third company. And me and Tony started it at 30 and I started it at 40 because I'm probably not starting another company. And I don't know if anyone else is starting a company, but I don't feel like I'm going to, I want that extra 30% wrapped into my company above what you guys have. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that gives you control of how dense you can make your stock. Like, you can own a lot of stock where you can get a lot of companies going and do all kinds of stuff if you don't get that really dense president share. But that also limits you in your building phases that you're allowed to build in. I feel like because of the way the stock round works, you can control and manipulate the when the stock rounds happen. And so because of that, everyone was train tight with your companies, except I was able to keep buying a train over to buy a train with my company, to buy that train over, to buy a train with that company, to buy it over, to buy a train with that company, because the longer we stayed in green phase running 3+3s, the more money I was making. And I was able to put like almost $1,000 into my foreign investor because I was able to control and manipulate the stock round. And so the more I think about 1880 and the more I think about all these levers that you can pull, there's a lot of chrome. But I feel like all of those extras give you a high level of control in the game. But I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are, because those are just my thoughts on 1880, is that it's a game you can control a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of control you can use. From just the track lays, like you said, and the share distribution of what you build. I guess that last game that we played together, of 80, I don't know if you ever saw that before, but I used my foreign investor to build track for a company that had a 30 or 40% share I bought in the first round.
Yeah.
He wasn't building track, but the foreign investor built the track for him. And that was my second company I started. So he was just running on that track and was perfectly fine doing that.
So Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what Kyle did though is he actually used the Japanese foreign investor, and he parred JHU at like 40% with like a C or a D or something like that, and he just used Japan because he also had another company that was his foreign investor one, but he just used Japan to build all the track for the other company he started in round one. It was amazing.
Yeah, and that's the thing with, I think, these games that have a lot of stuff going on, is they're a little bit harder to figure out the long-term strategies of. So I have a similar thing where I play 1844, as I'm getting to the point now where I played it enough that I'm like, okay, if I do this and this and this and this, and that'll work out really good long-term. And I feel like 1880 is a game that would be very similar and would be worth to keep playing, because you could start to, okay, if I get this private and I make it with this company and do it in this way, that's the best payoff long term. And it's those kind of operational games that I find interesting, when there's a lot of things to juggle and put together and pieces to lock in place to make the game work. Those kind of things I find very appealing. It kind of speaks to more, I think, the Euro gamer side of me I still have. Contrastly, I think if a game's going to be more quote unquote pure, less of those MacGuffins, then if I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, I prefer that game to have a serious edge to it. Like you can crush somebody in the stock market or really make someone have a bad day doing something else. And so if it's one of those two extremes, I'm usually pretty happy with it, and really probably having a really good time. The only time I think, and I don't know why it is, but I think the one that I've played that's probably the least playable for me right now, even though I would still play it, is 1870. And I don't know if I feel like I felt it out, but it feels often like it's too safe for the different MacGuffins in it. Like I don't really ever feel very panicked when I play that game. But then again, I've only ever played with people who play it in a meta that I'm used to.
The Chicago group is very fond of 1870.
Right.
And I'm very famous for saying 1870. I would play 1870 over no 18XX for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel that every MacGuffin 1870 has makes it a worse game to me. Every MacGuffin it has makes it a weaker title because it has price protection. It has destinations. It has all of these things that basically, how we were talking about how much control you have in 1880, you have no control in 1870. In the fact that if I start this company's going to do this because it has to go here. And then it's like you get so much protection for your stock because you can buy it immediately if you have the money. Or if you can't, don't worry. There's a red line that protects it too. And it's just, it makes it like such a patty cake game to me. I'm just like, blah, blah.
Yeah. Although there was that last game I played of it where, we were looking at the end game and I'm sitting here going, wait, if I buy a train, Trent goes bankrupt and I win the game. Okay. That seems like a thing I should do. But then again,
I'd never seen this happen before, but in that game of 1870, because the train rush is one of the better parts of that game, but Trent had 3 companies. I'd never seen this happen before. This one player, he had 3 companies. All 3 of them had to force buy a train in the same OR. Like we all just kind of sat there like, oh, okay, Andy buys the 4, and then these 2 companies buy the 5. I'm going to buy the 6. And we're like, wait a minute. So, and we deleted all of the trains, and we're like, wait, that company's bankrupt. Who owns that one? Trent. That company's trainless. Who owns that one? Trent. That company's now trainless. Who owns that one? Trent. Oh, well, Trent's done.
And yeah, that ended the game, and I'm like, oh, I win. Okay, that works. But yeah, no, and that's the thing is I like that. If they're going to be more pure, I prefer a vicious edge to them. Like 1889, I enjoy for that because it's a great teaching game. And one of the times I taught it, basically I was doing something stupid just to see if I could get away with it. And Joe Sallin, that was one of his first games. He's like, oh, wait, I can make Andy force buy a diesel, and then I can just like buy that company back from him in the next stock round. And I'm like, yeah, that's a thing you should do. And then we were showing this other guy. It was his first 18XX, and all of a sudden I see him go, and he looks down, and he looks over at me, and he's like, I can do that too. But that would be really mean. I'm like, no, you legitimately should do that right now. And so I was out of the game at that point, but it was funny seeing new people like that light bulb moment when they're like, oh, I can screw you so bad right now.
I always tell people in 1889, the diesels are weapons. They are not tools. Because you can't run them better. If you're playing good, you can't run them better than a 6. But the only reason to do it is to buy a train over, to force buy the diesel, to melt the 4s, to end the game. That's the only reason that the diesels exist in 89 is to be used as weapons.
Yep. So yeah, I guess then my thoughts on, coming back to 1880 is it's a title I'm really enjoying because there's a lot of weird stuff to do with it, and I enjoy figuring that out.
And I also think it's a title you can get really good at.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a reason that they use it a lot in tournament settings. Like 80 is a popular one for tournament settings as far as like at the 18XX conventions and stuff like that, because I think the more you play 80, the better you can get at 80, which is enjoyable. I like that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Well, this has been getting late. This has been Shenanigans and McGuffins, episode 1. We're just talking train games. We're going to have different people on every time. We'll probably have the same people back, but this will probably be a monthly thing that we do. Different people talking about different stuff. But one thing, Andy, is by next month, okay? So I'm going to give you homework, okay? By next month, both of you guys can show back up. You must play 1817 this month so that we can talk about 1817 on the next episode, okay?
I don't think that'll be a problem in my group.
Yeah, that might be a problem with mine. I will do my best. But
I mean, someone in your group owns it.
Come out to
So
Chicago.
yeah.
For
me, it's more blocking out the time necessary than there's 3 people I know that would do it. It's if I can find the time to do it. But I think we might be having a 24-hour gaming event coming up. I will try.
Yeah, it would be good. It would be good. I would love to hear initial thoughts of 1817 and then like talk about it because it's the best game. Well, this has been
First time I played
Shenanigans and
Cardboard.
McGuffins, guys. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at Cardboard Truth. Tune in. We'll be having a deep end at some point this month. And tell everybody where they can find you guys.
I'm on Twitter, so I tweet under @DenisonScience because I had the Twitter thing before I was a board gamer. And yeah, you can find me on the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly podcast, reviewing kind of those 18xx games and quirky other games is my MO there.
And I'm at KNorman13 on Twitter. And I'm on the Dual Gauge podcast.
Which will be having a new episode.
We are recording in 5 days. So,
can you give us a sneak peek what's going to be on?
18 Cleveland.
Nice.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll be interested to
cool.
see what everyone says about that.
Oh,
So I was kind of holding that one closer to vest.
so does that mean you're going to be able?
Okay,
So are you
that
gonna
makes
be
sense.
Are you going to be getting some more plays of that in then?
Yeah.
Let me know what your thoughts are then. I'd just shoot me some private messages and talk to me about it when you get it played. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Very much hope you guys enjoyed listening. Bye-bye.